In recent days, instead of progress in peace negotiations, Russia and Ukraine have continued shelling. Ukraine is launching drone strikes in Russian regions, and drones regularly hit different targets. Recall that Ukraine's Western allies had lifted restrictions on long-range weapons attacks on Russian territory. In this case, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky told the Axios Show that if Russia won't end the war, officials working in the Kremlin should make sure they know where the nearest bomb shelter is. Zelensky said he had President Trump's explicit backing to hit Russian targets like energy infrastructure and arms factories. And he said that if Ukraine gets additional long-range weaponry from the US, we will use it. Zelensky said Ukraine would not bomb civilians because we are not terrorists. But he suggested the centers of Russian power, like the Kremlin, were very much on the table. They have to know where the bomb shelters are. Zelensky said of Kremlin officials, they need it. If they will not stop the war, they will need it in any case. The current war utilizes a wide range of unmanned aerial systems. These include interceptor drones, short and medium-range attack drones, and large drones for rear-line strikes. Defense Express reported that Ukraine currently produces over 200,000 drones per month. This represents a 900% annual increase in production. Ukraine is now increasing the number of drone strikes on Russian cities. The war is now spreading to Russian cities themselves. This means that millions of people are living in fear, given that UAVs are becoming increasingly dangerous. The best option during an emergency remains, of course, shelter. Hiding inside apartments and houses or going deeper into buildings is still a viable option, but it's not as safe during the shelling. But these are not available in many cities in Russia. In this situation, Ukraine is increasing the number of drone strikes. For example, Ukrainian drones struck the Afipsky oil refinery in southwestern Russia overnight on September the 26th, Russian authorities reported. Krasnodar Krai's regional operational headquarters reported that Ukrainian drones' debris fell on one of the refinery's units amid a wider drone attack on the region. The Russian officials claimed that a fire spanning 30 square meters was extinguished by crews. No casualties or infrastructure damage was sustained in the attack, officials claimed. Kiev continues to escalate its campaign against Russian oil and gas infrastructure, a key source of Moscow's revenues, helping to fuel its all-out invasion of Ukraine. The refinery, located roughly 200 kilometers from the front line, serves as a strategic logistics hub for diesel fuel and aviation kerosene used by Russian troops. The refinery is also key to Russia's economic might, processing 6.25 million tons of oil annually, or 2.1% of Russia's entire oil refining output. The refinery has been targeted multiple times since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion. The General Staff of Ukraine's armed forces said on August the 7th that a successful strike on the Afipsky oil refinery damaged a technical unit of the refinery.
Speaking to world leaders this week, U.S. President Donald Trump claimed that climate change wasn't real, that green energies were bad investments, and that high electricity bills in Europe were leading to heat deaths. The statements were false or misleading. According to Associated Press, here are the facts. Since the 19th century, scientists have known that the release of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere raises global temperatures. The temperature increase alters normal weather variations, making extreme events like flooding and heat waves more likely and intense. This climate change, it's the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the world, in my opinion, Trump said. Trump has long been a critic of climate science and policies aimed at helping the world transition to green energies like wind and solar. His speech last Tuesday at the United Nations General Assembly, however, was one of his most expansive to date. It included false statements and making connections between things that are not connected. Trump called renewable sources of energy like wind power a joke and pathetic, falsely claiming they don't work, are too expensive and too weak. Solar and wind are now, almost always, the least expensive and the fastest options for new electricity generation, according to a July report from the United Nations. That report also said the world has passed a positive tipping point, where those energy sources will only continue to become more widespread. The three cheapest electricity sources globally last year were onshore wind, solar panels, and new hydropower, according to an energy cost report by the International Renewable Energy Agency. Subsidies endorsed by Trump and the Republican Party are artificially keeping fossil fuels viable, said University of Pennsylvania climate scientist Michael Mann. Relatedly, Trump falsely claimed European electricity bills are now 2 to 3 times higher than the United States, and our bills are coming way down.
For the United States, we're supposed to pay like $1 trillion. And I said, this is another scam.
Speaking to world leaders this week, U.S. President Donald Trump claimed that climate change wasn't real, that green energies were bad investments, and that high electricity bills in Europe were leading to heat deaths. The statements were false or misleading. Here are the facts. Since the 19th century, scientists have known that the release of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere raises global temperatures. The temperature increase alters normal weather variations, making extreme events like flooding and heat waves more likely and intense. This is all well established, but here is what the president said.
This climate change, it's the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the world, in my opinion. Climate change, no matter what happens, you're involved in that. No more global warming, no more global cooling. All of these predictions made by the United Nations and many others, often for bad reasons, were wrong.
According to the United Nations, wind and solar power are today almost always the cheapest sources of new electricity generation. But Trump claimed they didn't work and were not profitable.
The wind doesn't blow. Those big windmills are so pathetic and so bad, so expensive to operate. And they have to be rebuilt all the time, and they start to rust and rot. Most expensive energy ever conceived, and it's actually energy. You're supposed to make money with energy, not lose money. You lose money, the governments have to subsidize. You can't put them out without massive subsidies.